Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 248. Better on Draft Podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You can watch us live if you're listening to us on podcast, facebook.com/Better on Draft or betterondraft.tv. You can watch us live 7 p.m. every single Friday. We're going to have the next 2 weeks of shows. That is the 11th and 18th. And then we're going to be off for Christmas and New Year's Day before we start our dry January, or for probably everyone else on the show, damp January, as we attempt to at least cut back a little bit on alcohol. I appreciate you all coming. I am attempting to lower my calorie intake as I have been. When you have a keg of beer, guys, I don't know if you know a keg of beer at home, you drink a lot more. And I have been drinking a lot of my keg of beer. So I am just drinking the Corona Seltzer right here. 90 calories, no sugar, no carbs. So I am happy. But that's not what our guest makes today. Our guest is from Toppling Goliath in Iowa. Eric, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate you coming on in. I know it's a little bit early out there. Are you Central Time over there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's about just 6 o'clock right now, so not too terribly late.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you again taking the time out to join us. So I'm going to ask you the first question, and this is going to be kind of a simple question. What is your favorite beer to brew over at Toppling Goliath as a brewer?
Oh man, I have to probably say the stouts, just because I mean they're a little bit longer days, but they're incredibly rewarding, and just like the smells that just really like fill the brew house is just like it's almost intoxicating. Or just when we have to do things with like the kettle and things like that, you usually get like a giant waft of just like roasted like malts and like chocolate, and it's decadent.
Explain to me, as if I am a new person into the brewing process, the brewing industry, why does a stout day take longer?
So the way we do stouts, we are trying to get an higher, like most of our imperial stouts are at a higher alcohol by volume, and so the reason we normally take that are gravity readings. But in order to achieve that, gravity is a reading of density of water, and so for that it'd be sugar. And so the longer we boil our wort, when it gets into the kettle portion of a brew, the more higher your gravity is. And so when we're trying to achieve those higher gravities, the longer boil we have to perform. And so it's just more of a just time consuming of just trying to maintain a rigorous boil, and so that we can get the correct gravity that we are looking for before we add our yeast and do fermentation.
Well, thank you for that. I learned something new today. Dan, how are you doing today? What's the weather like out in Arizona?
It was about 68 degrees today. Not too shabby. So can't complain. Not too hot.
So jealous.
Yeah.
What is it you're drinking over there?
I'm actually starting off with a good old vodka soda. I got a Bloody Mary on the side over there. Now, Eric, I'm glad you brought up stouts, because I know these guys are going to ask you a million questions about the beers you brew. I've got a beer that these guys can't get their hands on. Everyone is losing their damn minds off of this. I hope you can see it. It's a good old Siedo Zoo. Who's the brainchild behind this? Who came up with it, and what made you decide to work with Bottle Logic to put something like this together?
I mean, working with Bottle Logic in general just seemed like almost like a no-brain move for us. So we reached out to them, or they reached out to us beforehand, and we were just like, they've been producing stouts like Fundamental Observation for at least a few years now, and we've been a big fan of theirs, and they've been a big fan of us. So I think we started the collaboration back in. They came to our facility in like early 20 or late 2018. So that was about like the first year when we first opened at our new 100-barrel facility. And I mean, we just hit it off. We were going back and forth what we wanted to do recipe wise, and what we agreed on was basically combining like our best elements of Assassin versus their best elements of some of their stouts, like Fundamental Observation and things like that, and just like mashing them together to create like a massive beer. And so down there, when the Fall of Umi Bozu was the collaboration we did down at their facility, and that is the result of their tender love and care and their fingers and massaging their beer. While we're actually just doing a release now, more so next week is I would say it's sister brother beer, which is Kaiju Clash. So they both utilize a series of vanilla beans as well as coffee as well, which is they're both fantastic beers.
Awesome. Do you plan on working with them again in the future? Because this one had to be one of the best successes I've seen as far as collaborations that they've done.
I sure hope so. I think it's a relationship that is very much flowering, and I hope we can work with them soon, COVID depending.
For sure. Awesome. Thank you.
I feel like everything's COVID depending these days, but as Nicholas is still out on baby duty, Matt is stepping in and filling in his shoes. How are you doing today, Matt? And what are you drinking over there?
So I went and got a Pseudo Zoo. I don't think I've ever had this beer, so I went and got this, which will be part of my question. I also found the Moscow Mule Seltzer from outside, and because I'm also a basic bitch and I'm the seltzer king, I'm trying this Blue Marble Ultra Premium Seltzer. So we'll figure out what this is all about. But I guess my question is really about Pseudo Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are what, about 18 months into Michigan? Is that kind of?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Because I know you were post my beer career. So when I went to the beer store that I found you guys in, I saw 2 IPAs and 2 double IPAs. I saw Pseudo Zoo, King Sue. Was it Warrior Princess?
Intergalactic Warrior.
And then something about a scorpion.
Scorpius Morchella.
So you guys are super hot forward right now, at least in our market. So what do you think we can expect as maybe the next wave of beers from you guys that maybe not for the hop heads like Ken, that people who want more palatable, refreshing beers might be able to find?
Definitely. So in our core brands, we have Dorothy's New World Lager. It's a little bit, give it a bit more heft to it compared to something like a Coors or like your normal domestics. It's usually sits around like I want to say like 5.2-ish. You'd have to quote me on that. But I think it's a very refreshing beer. I love the last few batches of it. It's something I always try to have something in my fridge. But at least for other styles of beer, we have 9090, which is our Oakdale. We're looking to bottle this next batch, which I'm really excited for. It's one of my personal favorites that we do, as it's something that kind of mixes up from our normal hop game that we're pretty much known for. It's got a nice caramel, like molasses taste to it. It's really like rustic. But then we also come early next year, we're looking into getting a new labeler so that we can actually do more one-off beers and things like that. And so over the last year, we've been trialing new styles of beer, like a Hefeweizen that we're really excited about. And I actually personally can't wait for that to come out. We've also done a Bavarian style Pilsner that should also hopefully see canning within the next year as well, that I'm really excited for. And then we're also working on a few other more, I guess, palatable things like a shandy and things like that for when it comes to the summertime.
Is that going to make it here to Michigan? Because I know we're kind of a new market for you guys. So are we going to get some of that, or are we going to just keep getting the flagships? Do you think maybe some barrels to one of our higher end, maybe beer bars? If
definitely. I think Michigan definitely has a chance. I know it's a market that we're really excited to be in, and when it comes to some of the things like that, obviously, I think some of our more core states like Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, the ones that we've had the longest relationships with, will kind of get first pick. But at least hopefully for me, I have a love of Michigan. I've had some relatives who live there and went to school there, that hopefully that we can at least see a wider distribution of when it comes to those more smaller and niche brands that we serve.
Can we skip Wisconsin since they're just like Miller Lite and High Life and like Packer fans?
Hey, I take offense to that. As a Packer fan, we're done with this podcast. Over.
I was gonna say you're not the first Packer fan. You won't be the last. We had Dan Carey on from New Glarus, so you know you can't.
West too. West the big cheddarhead.
Yeah, you can't bring in those West Michigan and Wisconsin people and not expected. Wendy, how you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good. What are you drinking over there?
I have a Dragon Fandango. It's very delicious. I really love the fruit flavors in it. And I also managed to get a King Sue, so I'm really excited about that. Even though we do have it in Michigan, I still have to drive 45 minutes to get to it because I am still in the beer wasteland, which kind of sucks. But I had to take a trip to Ohio, so I was able to pick up a couple of things that I don't think we see here as often. So my question, we might as well get the easy ones out of the way right off the bat, because we're going to talk about KBBS and we're going to talk about COVID. So I know that the KBBS release is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, I'm going to interrupt myself and say, I hope that my disappointment isn't showing that I didn't get a ticket. I'm never good at gambling, so the lottery system never works in my favor. So I will get there one day, though, I promise. But what changes did you have to make this year to this year's event due to the pandemic?
It's been a step-by-step process. I mean, we've already had a few releases this year, and none of them have been like just the other, just based on state regulations and things like that. It's like the very first release we had this year when COVID happened was Assassin, and I think we were almost one of the few breweries that did a release, at least early on in the pandemic, where we almost did a no contact pickup, or at least a slight contact pickup. But we're very fortunate to have the facility that we do have right now. So I mean, we've been at it now for about 3 years. We opened in early 2018 to the public. But with the size, so we have an upper mezzanine area as well as our outdoor patio, as well as the indoor space on the bottom floor. So I mean, we have ample amount of space to accommodate more people than it would be for a typical brewery and things like that. So we can at least space out adequately, 6 feet and things like that. And actually, fortunately for today specifically, it's been like 35 degrees right now. It's a very nice 35 degrees. So it's sunny. We also have like heat lamps and things like that outside to keep patrons warm. So, I mean, we've been trying to follow these all statewide guidelines. All our staff has like a mask mandate. We have gloves. We're always making sure when our staff is handling things like dishes and glassware that they have to go to an individual table, bring that glassware, bring it back, rewash and sanitize, go to the next table. So I mean, it was a bit more of a longer, arduous process, but we are just trying to maintain the safety of our customers is our top priority.
What has changed? Sorry to interrupt, Wendy. What has changed for COVID in the back house? We've talked so much about what's changed in the front of the house, what's changed in sales and distribution, but what about the back of the house? What has changed for you guys making the beer?
Early on, I mean, it was a lot of change. I mean, we had to like slash a lot of brews out just because of uncertainties and things like that. Repurpose kegged beer that we could no longer sell, and so. I mean, there was a lot of changes. I mean, also like right now, it's going on is the like aluminum can shortage that's been affecting us as well. So it's also trying to dive into, where like we have to find alternative ways to potentially package beer. We like to personally use printed cans. We find that to be a little bit more presentable and a little bit classy when it comes to our packaging. We've done wrap cans in the past, but we find that to be not as effective. That's why, again, we're going for the printing label in the early next year, to where if we do run into that issue, we can still repurpose that into another means of packaging and just get blank cans as opposed to waiting 6 weeks plus for printed cans from Ball. While even though we're a larger brewery, we're still pretty low man on the totem pole, at least when it comes to things like Coke and like all your major like beverage distributors. But I mean, we've looked into like getting a bottler and a few other means. Actually, today we also started doing 12-ounce cans because for us, we found it as an opportunistic time to start packaging 12-ounce cans and they were available to us. And I think we also think it's a correct step to start moving that and doing 12-ounce packs, or it's 12-ounce case, 12-can case of Pseudo Zoo.
Are you going to put your higher ABV beers in those 12 packs? Because I know, I'm drinking a 16-ouncer right here, and it's nice and warm. But do you think like your higher ABVs would do better in a 4-pack 12-ounce? Like, maybe that's something that we're seeing here in Michigan. Is that something you guys are seeing in Iowa?
The idea has been tossed around. Just because at this point, pretty much all cards are on the table. Like we talked about, maybe doing some like certain barrel aged beers like in 4-packs, maybe other brands in 4-packs, just trying to see like what the consumer wants, what seems feasible to us, what's realistically possible. Just because everything's been kind of thrown through a loop. Staying the course as it used to be doesn't really seem to be a possibility, at least for the next couple years. So we're just trying to explore all options.
Go on.
So,
yeah, I know.
So going back to the releases, I read a quote one time that said, "It's not easy to get to Decorah. You really have to like to drive." And I think that's hilarious because I've mapped it out multiple times because I will get there eventually. It's 550 miles away from me, which is only a 9-hour drive. But I couldn't take a plane, a train, or a bus and not still have to rent a car to get there. What is it about Toppling Goliath that makes so many people want to come there? I think I heard 2019's Assassin release had over 4,000 people. That's crazy to something that you have. And there were people that I saw that were driving like thousands of miles to get there. So I'm just curious, what do you think it is that's bringing people in?
It's the beer. I guess I'm more of a realist than an idealist in a way, where it's like, and I work there, so like I'm used to it, and we're like, oh yeah, it's beer. I get to try Assassin whenever I want. But like the everyday like layman is just like, oh, here's this, put everything on a pedestal. And so like for me, the pedestal's down here while for anyone that's up there. So but what we do make is like, I'll be honest, it's damn good. It's some of the best beer that I've ever had, and I feel very fortunate to have a hand in that. But I still have very much a deep love of Decorah. Hell, I went to school at Luther College, which is in Decorah, because I love the area so much. It's very much its own little sliver of Norway. We're a very Scandinavian area, like very Scandinavian town. But it's a gorgeous area that's like in a little nestled in the bluffs of the Oneota Valley. It's beautiful during the summer. If you love kayaking, canoeing, and hiking and outdoor type ventures, it's the perfect place to be. If you like winter activities like cross-country skiing, it's also perfect for that. It's just a great place to live. The like not cost of living, but just like your enjoyment from being in the area and things like that, and just having that's a fantastic place to live is, I think, just also a huge grab. And there's also other great like breweries that are also in the area as well. We're in the middle of nowhere, but at the same time, we're also not too far from everywhere else. Like we're a 3-hour drive from like the Twin Cities. We're about a 3-hour drive from Madison. We're about a 3-hour drive from Des Moines. Rochester's about an hour drive just north of us. So if you want to go to something like Forager, they make some fantastic beers up there too. We have our own Pulpit Rock, who's ex-brewers from TG that are also in Decorah. And that's also a huge draw for the town as well. They're making also arguably some of the best beer in the state as well. I think we're pretty much 1 and 2 in my opinion. And so it's just I think it's just a good town. People really enjoy coming here, and I think people would enjoy coming here like year after year if they didn't just love the town itself.
Are you guys more Hawkeyes or Cyclones?
I definitely say Hawkeyes. There's some very staunch Cyclone fans that live in the brewery. Shout out to Darren. He's our cellar lead. But I like both. I'm more of a Hawkeye fan, but when the Cyclones do well, they're doing good in football right now. So I hope they can take it all.
Are you guys the type of place, and I know Wendy was just kind of talking about this, where what time do you guys open? Are you guys a noon kind of place, or are you guys like a 4 p.m. kind of place?
So right now our hours are from 11 to, I think 9 o'clock right now is our state cutoff for COVID. It might be 10.
I suppose like when the world isn't burning. Are you the type of place where the moment you open, someone bellies up to the bar and is sitting there until
Oh yeah.
3 o'clock? Or are you kind of like kind of in and out, crowd?
So we very much still have our regulars. I know they're a little begrudging that we're now no longer just located downtown Decorah at our old tap room. But we still have at least prior COVID, we always had a bunch of our regulars that come in and day out that still support us, as well as some friends that I've met. Like there has been a random day where I met some people out from Boston, and I just happened to be in the tap room at that time and just struck a conversation. Now we're almost like good friends. So I mean, it's awesome to see both people that are close and far away just always try to come in and out the door and enjoy and have a good time.
So I'm actually glad you brought up the kind of small town thing that Matt was talking about with when you open, because we have a lot of small town breweries out here in Arizona where I'm at. A lot of them in these smaller towns open at 3 and they're packed immediately. It's kind of funny. I went there just thinking of when I went to, go check this out. It's already nowhere to sit 15 minutes after they open. So where did your success come from? Did you have to go into distributing to a lot of different states in order to be successful based on where you're located? Or do you think the brewery was doing okay just being local? How did that play off? Where did you have to go in order to find the success that you've had?
I mean, for Clark Louie, who is our owner, I mean, he'll tell you that like the very first KBBS release, there was like 8 people, and 3 of them was like was him, Mike Sabo, our head brewmaster, and then like the person running the bar, and then that was it. Everything else, like they did like a light like distribution for KBBS also back in the day, where it's like they'll just put it like at the Decorah Mart, like the local like gas station, and like or like the local fairway, just whoever would take it at that point. So I mean, even like our big recognition beers, like we put it on light distros because not necessarily they wouldn't sell, but because I mean we didn't know what we were doing. But Clark, our owner, he's a very passionate person, and he always envisioned Toppling to be. I mean, as big as it is, it's always like the old slogan was as big beers in small batches. And even the name itself, where it's the small guy taking over like this big craft beer giant, and just always trying to improve on itself. And I think just whenever like things like Pseudo Zoo eventually caught on, either via like word of mouth, Beer Advocate, what have you, the growth's just been insane. I mean, wherever we could see opportunity to at least appease our customers, I mean, we always try to seek those ventures out, because we always like to say that the customers are our boss. Like they're the ones who dictate what we want to do. What they like is what we're going to try to go for. So I mean, that's why we in the like early 2010s ish, they sought to do the Florida partnership, where we started doing canning down in Florida because we weren't able to produce enough Pseudo Zoo up in Decorah, and so we're like, okay, well, we want to try to meet this demand, and so we'll do contract brewing down in Florida. I think some of our quality kind of dipped because of it, but I think we gained new fans and just more people who are at least attracted to the name and like the likeness of the whole company itself, that it overall was a net positive.
Do you think it's necessarily the quality that changed, or the fact that because the water from Iowa is so drastically different than the water you get in Florida, that you couldn't necessarily dial it in to where you want it to be?
I think that's definitely a cause. I mean, that's always been an issue, at least when people try to replicate like German or Czech style pilsners, is always been like water profile, and that's one of the most like mind-boggling things to like wrap your head around, at least when it comes to like trying to do beer. And that's something I'm still trying to like learn on. And yeah, I think it's definitely one of the causes from Florida to here. I mean, even if you have a reverse osmosis system, it's even depending what you do for your mineral composition, it's insanely difficult to try to like replicate what you're trying to do.
Now, looking into with Beer Advocate, I trust a little bit more Beer Advocate over, say, an Untapped rating, just because I think people who use Beer Advocate are a little more. I think their palate's a little more in tune because it's not the four square of beer reviews, which is Untapped. You guys have 5 beers in the top 50 based on scores, 4 of them being stouts, including your KBBS at number 1 at 4.9. Why do you think stouts get such a huge rating on all of these sites? Because stouts and IPAs are usually the top of nearly every single top beer list, and this is the top 10 beers this year, or the top 10 beers of this state, or the top 10 top 10 releases this year. Like, why does it always seem to be those two specific categories?
I feel like I get asked this question a lot, and it's always hard to pinpoint.
I mean,
think
you can
just
make up an
because
answer.
I know, right? I think for me personally, it's almost like easier to perceive flavors. Like when you get like a good pilsner, like a fantastic pilsner, and you like, I guess if you're like a big beer nerd and you see these large name like traditional style breweries like Dovetail and Bierstadt Lagerhaus in Colorado, where like their pilsners and their traditional styles are blowing up. It's like, okay, well, you have that, and it's like, okay, how do you differentiate that pilsner from like small town brewery pilsner? And it's like, okay, well, besides obvious like off flavors, things like that, it's okay, well, like your biscuity and like cracker like flavors, things like that. But like at least when a stout, it's like, okay, well, even with a non-adjuncted stout, it's like you get like your roastiness, you can get like dark chocolate, you can get like your dark and stone fruits, you can get these like very tangible and be able to pinpoint it's like the like average person. And I feel like just having that more a little bit of accessibility allows people to lean more into those like at least think so something that'll latch on a little bit more than like your lighter, more subtle flavors.
So what is an oil brew? Tell us about it.
An oil brew.
Yeah.
I guess I don't really know what you mean, but I mean, at least what I think and gather is, unless for me, a lot of our stouts are they're very viscous. In that way of it's very much, it almost appears like motor oil.
Okay.
But so we just did a collaboration stout with Sawyer Brewing Company out in I think they're in South Dakota, over near Sioux Falls. No, other side. Sioux Rapids. I'm really bad with geography at times.
Sioux City.
Sioux City. No, that's Iowa. Oh my
Cedar
god.
Rapids?
Sault Ste. Marie.
It's west side of the state.
Sioux Falls.
Maybe. Sounds correct. I'm horrible. I should know. You can look it up. But we did a collaboration with Sawyer Brewing Company, and we did a triple mash, no like sugar addition boil, and it was like this monster stout, and it literally was like motor oil. It was like this very thick, viscous like wort. And like I was when I was doing knockout, so transferring from the wort from our whirlpool into our fermenter, and like the pump that was doing the transfer, it was like screaming. I'm like, I think this thing might blow up. It's so thick. It was like molasses. And I can't wait to try that beer because it's going to be delicious.
Sounds delicious. So let's talk about Pseudo Zoo. I love the hashtag Adventures of Sue. I actually want to go and pick some up so I can drive around the D and take pictures with it. So it's a flagship beer, but I also saw that it's the signature brew of Chicago's Field Museum Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
How did an Iowa brewery end up as the signature beer of a Chicago museum? It's not like Chicago is low in the beer scene.
Oh yeah, so that's a fun story. So Pseudo Zoo is actually I guess like Jason Child. So we had a brewer called Tsunami, and Pseudo Zoo is almost like kind of like an offshoot of that beer. It was called Tsunami Pale Ale, and I wasn't around the time when they actually changed it. so I can't give that full details there. But Sue was at least a relation to Tsunami, and they decided to use Sue the dinosaur as a mascot of sorts label for that beer. Well, much like a lot of other breweries nowadays, where copyright infringement kind of runs rampant, where people are doing like high C cans, they're doing Cheeto cans, they're all doing all these different crazy like hype beers, stuff like that, are one-offs. We actually got a cease and desist from the Field Museum because they have naming rights over to the dinosaur and its likeness. So instead of folding and being like, okay, we'll just call it something different or thing like that, we're like, we really respect what the Field Museum does. Potentially, let's work out a partnership, and eventually we did. And so we were able to work out some of our proceeds, or all like a portion of our proceeds from all Sioux sales goes to help fund the Fieldhouse of Chicago.
How
that's
can
awesome.
one? I'm sorry, Wendy. How can one claim trademark on an animal, or maybe a pretend animal, depending on how things work? Like, because we don't necessarily know that a dinosaur looks like a dinosaur. For all we know, it had feathers, but feathers aren't carbon neutral or whatever, and they would have degraded. So how
Pretty
can
sure it
one
has to do with the
say,
mascot thing?
I demand that mascot to be mine, and all others shall bow down, and Jurassic Park? So go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm no lawyer, so I can't really say, but I'm guessing probably, at least when it comes to their rights to owning the bones of Sue, the T-Rex, and I guess whatever 3D images they projected of it, that they have the other rights to it, at least the name and regarding that. So I don't know. We were pretty small at that time, so even if we were trying to legally fight, I don't know if we would have won or not. But it's just one of those.
Did you ever consider making this like an '80s can and call it Susu Studio?
We're gonna take that for an offshoot brand now. That's not a bad idea.
Does that have the scene from American Psycho on the can to go along with it?
I was gonna say that's basically Matt's entire MO is just giving everyone beer names.
Can it be like
Yeah.
Can it be like Christian Bale with headphones on, and depending on how you look at the can, it goes like this or this?
Yeah. I like it.
I kind of want to get into your opinion as the beer maker. You guys have some of the most well sought out beers, including the secondary market. Now we've talked to local breweries, including Drafting Table, who have made beers where it's gone for a single bottle of their beer went for in a trade a Nintendo Switch. We've had hundreds of dollars for bottles of CBS and KBS back when it wasn't just sitting on shelves right now. Now your guys, you have there's a 2014 bottle of KBBS out there for $1,400 and a batch one bottle for $1,500. What is your personal, not Toppling Goliath,
right,
but your personal opinion on the resale of your beer? Because the people who win the lottery of your sweepstakes and everything like that don't necessarily just buy it. They buy it to potentially resell it. It's almost an investment for them.
Mm-hmm. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with them. I mean, I know some people who do reselling and things like that. Most of them just do trading rather than actual like straight cash for beer. But it's interesting, I guess. I don't know. Every time I try to step on people's toes, but I personally don't like it. I mean, I'm in some like beer trading groups and things like that, and there's some just really bad shit lords. It's the worst. It's bad. But I mean, it's when it comes to democracy and doing that, it's all based on demand and whoever has the product. It's like, if you want to pay $1,500 for a beer, be my guest. For me, at the end of the day, beer is beer. Working for TG, I have a bottle of like SR batch 2 in my fridge. I never plan on selling it, but it's like, I'm going to share it with my friends. And that's all it really, really comes down to, is like, I want to have beer, even if it is like this sought after thing that I want to enjoy with other people. But when you put things on a pedestal for that high, you're always going to set yourself up for disappointment. Like, especially for beer, at best, if it's like a non-adjunct stout, it may last for like 5 years. unless it's like something like a lambic or like a wild ale, and it's be able to like condition that well. But I guess when it comes to most stouts, things start to grade. Your adjuncts start to like either fade or transition into off flavors, like much like coffee beer. Coffee starts to turn into more like your green pepper, and it becomes very astringent. It's just drink it while you can, maybe save it for a few years, but just enjoy beer. Beer's supposed to be fun. Beer's supposed to bring togetherness, not be like this divisive thing.
Well, we as Better on Draft agree. We do our best not to, I have some beer behind me that has a little bit of age on it that I will get to one day. I do have, and I know we're going to be planning it when the entire world stops going to hell. We were supposed to do it around Christmas this time, but I have an entire set of our local yearly release, which is Griffin Claw's Flying Buffalo. I have every single bottle, every single variant, one of each, and the goal was to do some giveaways to get people to all come into a certain place, maybe do a tasting on an off day over at, say, like Zaytuna Liquor over in Rochester Hills, just south of M59 on Rochester Road. Go check out Jack. You can get Pseudo Zoo and all the other Toppling Goliath beers over there. I sadly live a little too far away in a county that doesn't get Toppling Goliath, in a not a beer wasteland like Wendy, but still pretty a pretty wasteful area. I don't know where I was getting with that. I was just making sure I got it a plug for Zaytuna Liquor. So I'm gonna pass it over to Matt, because I know he's got a question with the finger over his mouth.
Oh no, I was just kind of thinking. So tell us about the beer scene where you are. Like, for me, I talk about all the time. I've got 4 breweries within 2.5 miles. So, what's the scene where you are? Like, how close is your nearest brewery? Like the next 2 over? I know kind of the Great Plains. You guys are a lot more spread out than even we are here in the Midwest. So, like, you talked about collaboration. I mean, is the brewery in a county over, an hour away? Like, what's the beer scene in the Corn counties?
I mean, I'm a huge advocate for the Iowa beer scene in general. I think we just surpassed like 100 breweries like earlier this year, like right before COVID. But I think what we make up in numbers, or quantity, we make up in quality. I mean, right in Decorah itself, people always consider it the little mecca of like beer in the middle of nowhere. But that's not even just because of us, because of Pulpit Rock as well. They've been doing a lot of great work, or at least when it comes to the quote unquote hype beers. They do a lot of the like kind of not necessarily slushy, but they do a lot of like pastry sours, pastry stouts. But they also offer a lot of other options as well. But they've been killing it. Just south of us in Calmer, Iowa, is pretty small. It's got like a community college there. They do more traditional things like that, but they also like to offer a good selection of like the older domestics, like old style and hams on tap, because they know their locals like that stuff, as well as being able to bring other people in with all their other different like styles of beer that they're trying to do. But then once you get outside of that realm, a lot of there's a lot of like decently sized like small towns in Iowa now that have breweries nowadays. I think off the top of my head right now, at least one that's been around for a while is Worth County Brewing, which is just north of Clear Lake, Iowa, which is where I'm from, which is north central. They've been around for maybe 7-8 years, but they haven't really expanded much. They haven't really been making a lot of noise, but they've just been trucking along and staying with like their local audience. Des Moines got a good handful of breweries now also, for being our largest town. Cedar Rapids, like their scene's really growing. Iowa City is also really good. So I mean, there's just a lot of really good quality breweries and good up and comers that are just making just great beer, whether it be if they want to expand or just trying to appease their own like small town audience.
Are you allowed to pour beer where you make beer? I guess. So a couple of questions. Like, some places aren't allowed to pour their own beer.
Right.
Are you allowed to do that? And you talked about hams. Can you have just kegs of beer from a random brewery and pour your own in Iowa? Like, are there some weird ass, like, what are the weird,
I know, because I'm not too familiar on when it comes to laws, because I know there's I know I mostly handle the wort production side. Because I know there's breweries in Iowa. There's like Single Speed and Big Grove. They're one's out of Waterloo, Cedar Rapids area. The other one's out of Iowa City. But they both have 2 locations, at least when it comes to brewing. But they're also able to have 2 tap rooms. But I think beer laws are so like outdated nowadays. At least not as bad as Minnesota, but I know we're at least. I know we have to treat our tap room almost like its own individual base like retailer, and so we have to like treat our cooler as like a middleman before we actually do anything before going into the actual tap room.
So in Michigan we always say that about Ohio. So is Minnesota your Ohio?
I'd say so, yeah. Minnesota's a very interesting state that hasn't updated a lot of laws.
Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, at breweries you can't get to-go beer, and that includes retail. Because I remember my dad went to Surly and was denied the ability to take beer home from there, because that was one of the places that I wanted beer. I'm like, oh, I want beer from Surly. This was before Surly was in Michigan and we all forgot about it. Which you laugh. I just personally hope, Eric, it doesn't happen to you guys, because when beer comes into Michigan, and everyone I believe who is listening to this who is a Michigander will just agree, is that it gets kind of like, it gets hyped for about a month and a half, and then it falls. And the trend started with, really, to my personal opinion, Ballast Point. And then when we had breweries that came in, like Cigar City came in, because obviously they had the huge thing with Oscar Blues, which is also, the Oscar Blues group owns Cigar City and Perrin in Michigan. It's happened with Surly, it's happened with Hop and Frog. All these breweries come in, they're just like, we're homers. I mean, if you're a Michigander, you're just a complete homer. But we've been talking for 45 minutes. This has been a great show. As we kind of end the show, I always like to do like a one final question, usually in order of how everybody is on the screen. So we're going to start off with Wendy. Wendy, what is your final question for Eric?
So Toppling Goliath went from brewing a half a gallon of beer a day in 2009 to brewing 31,000 gallons of beer in what, year 11 now? You've got the number 1 rated beer in the world, and you're listed as the number 2 brewery in the world. What's next for Toppling Goliath?
Man, I suppose just keep pumping out quality. Come next year when we get our pressure sensitive labeler, we're gonna start to venture more into different styles of beer, more fun projects and things like that. I know for me personally, we have things in the talk right now. Nothing's really come to fruition yet. But I mean, we want to jump in the world of like lambics and things like that. It's maybe about a year plus out, but that's still at least hopeful. I know at some points we also want to do like a distillery, control all processes, at least when it comes to barrel aging beer and things like that. So when we can at least control the spirit, at least that comes out of the barrel itself, that we can also control that as well as the beer. I think that'll be a very cool venture. At least that is many years down the road, but that is a very much a dream of ours at some point.
Something to look forward to.
Dan.
Hey, so this kind of plays off of what Wendy was asking, but how about, and you might not know the answer to this, what about distribution? Do you have plans to go further out, head further west, southwest, northwest? What do you think? And if you know,
Arizona specifically.
No, not Arizona specifically. The Southwest, though, in general, is a pretty hot beer area between Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, that sort of area.
I like Arizona. I got some really good friends out there that I wouldn't mind visiting. But I mean, there's always the realm. It's more of just seeing what the scene's kind of looking at, especially nowadays. Seeing out where we can expand, especially what our facility can hold, and then what our facility actually can produce. We just got 2 new 400 barrel fermenters at the end of August, because actually during the COVID times we were actually doing fairly decently, just because people were drinking more beer than ever. We're actually doing record numbers because people were staying home. But we'll see if that changes, if more lockdowns and things like that happen. But if our growth can continue at the rate it's been for the last pretty much 3 years, I don't know. Really nothing's off the table. We would like to be in 50 states, but that's, not always feasible, especially with the amount of beer we have to make. There'd always be plans down the road, but the more the merrier. We always say we would always want everyone to be a fan of your own brewery and your own beer. But we'll see. We'll see where the road takes us.
Matthew.
So I'm going to kind of go the opposite, or ask you the opposite question that Wendy said. Is there anything that you just won't do, like something you just don't want to be involved in? Like for me, it's kolsches that have flavors to them because that's sacrilege and should never.
Matt is like a true, like, if anything, it's probably a lager pils or kolsch that has anything that's not a standard lager pils or kolsch. So if you add lime to it or marshmallow or whatever, like
then it's just a pale ale or a half with flavor. If it's a kolsch, if it's a kolsch, kolsch is like champagne. You can't put shit in kolsch and call it a kolsch. Even if you call it a kolsch style, that's bullshit. I hate you. I want to burn your house down.
What about a coffee kolsch?
You know what? You're done. You know what? I withdraw my question for that answer alone.
I assume you made a coffee kolsch?
No, but I know though they're. I think at least when it comes to kolsches, I know at least people really like to add like coffee to them. And that's a really
terrible.
Good one.
That's like putting like lightning with like snow. You don't put things in snow. There's not like you don't have like a hurricane and snow. You don't have an earthquake and snow. You have snow and an earthquake. You don't put those things together. As Lewis Black once said, if someone would have seen thunder, lightning, and snow, Jesus would have wiped his ass and written that in the goddamn Bible too.
I think the closest thing for us to not putting anything would be I've got a friend in the group I'm in, and he really wants us to do like add marshmallow to King Sue, and I know our head brewer Mike, he's like, no, that'll never happen. It's like I think King Sue already is it's great, but
actually, you know what? I have a great idea. You should put marshmallow in the King Sue, and mandate that your friend who wants the marshmallow make him clean the afterwards and say, hey, we'll run this once, you have to clean it, and then after you clean it the first time, if you want it again, then you can run it just for free.
I like that. I'm going to tell him that. But other than that, we've had ideas like bouncing around, like maybe jump into the seltzer game. I know we're doing some small batch trials right now of doing some like pastry stouts and things like that. I know that's been popular lately, and we'll see where that kind of whole like fad of things go. But we're just trying things out at this point, like on a smaller scale, at least like 1 to 2 barrels. But I think nothing's really out of the realm of doing things. Maybe like a glitter beer, we probably never do that because I feel that fad came and left like in a snap of a finger.
Thank you.
But yeah, so nothing's really. It's again like what I said earlier was the customers are is our boss. If they're really really wanting something that they want us to see, like they really want to see a TG, I don't know, chili beer that has lactose and bunch of other crazy adjuncts into it. We might give it a go and see how it goes. But if we deem it to not be good, then we would never release it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna finish this though. Get a little bit personal real quick. Everybody talks about how hyped they get for Assassin and KBBS and SR71. What about you? What beer do you get hyped for?
Oh man. Shoot. There's releases around the state that I'd always like to make. Being kind of stuck at work in the late shift, I don't really get the chance to kind of visit breweries nowadays, also because of COVID. But no, it's more of just I've been kind of rediscovering just beers that like made me fall in love with craft beer again, which I've been enjoying immensely. I actually have one right now I was gonna finish off before the Fire Skulls and Money I was drinking, which is Lionbridge's Compensation. It's a English mild. It's super delicious. It's roasty. It's got like malt and caramel character to it without not being too too heavy. Where's some of the older, like Confluent, which is down in Des Moines. They made a black IPA called Thomas Beck that I absolutely love, and I'm really hoping I can get it again someday. It's just more of I've been on this whole kick of just rediscovering what made me fall in love with craft beer. That's I think that's been gotten me the most excited about. It's almost like when we do get to the point of being able to these smaller batches, like 100, 200 barrels, which is small to us right now. That's hopefully we can, at least we or I or someone, we can introduce more of these different beers that can hopefully rekindle these same joy and like adventure and rediscovery for other people.
Eric, thank you so much for taking an hour of your day to join us. I'm sure we probably could have talked for a lot of hours, but I want to cut this off, maybe save it for another show, another day. Toppling Goliath over in Decorah, Iowa. Decorah? How do you say it? Decorah, Iowa. Go check them out. Obviously, they're distroed here in Michigan and Oakland and Macomb County, so you can go check them out there. Of course, Zatuna Liquor has them over in Rochester Hills. Of course, go check out our other sponsor, North Center Brewing over in Northville, Michigan. That's going to do it. TG Brews on Instagram. Go follow them. See what they're up to over at the Toppling Goliath Brewery. That's going to do it. We're going to do the news in about 5 minutes or so. If you're listening to this on podcast, obviously the podcast will come out on Monday, but you can watch it live at betterondraft.tv or facebook.com/betterondraft. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's
Better on Draft.
Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Hey.